Human Immunity by Sophie Appleby. An infection happens when microorganisms enter the body. This is usually through foods, broken skin, eyes, nose, and mouth. Infectious diseases are not usually present in the body. Bacteria is a single celled organism and is responsible for illnesses such as pneumonia and bacterial meningitis. Viruses are smaller than bacteria. They invade the living cell and use those cells to reproduce other viruses like them. Viruses cause the common cold and COVID-19. Fungi is found in the environment around us. It causes many skin conditions such as athlete's foot. Parasites are organisms that live in or on other organisms called the host. Parasites cause conditions such as malaria from mosquitoes or toxoplasmosis from cats. Infections can be transmitted through direct contact, indirect contact, insect bites, and contaminated food. The easiest way to catch a disease is through direct contact. This includes person-to-person contact, which is when an infected person touches or exchanges bodily fluids with an uninfected person. Also included is animal-to-person contact and mother-to-unborn child contact through the umbilical cord. Indirect contact is when an object has been touched by an infected person. An example is if an infected person sneezed into their hands, touched the doorknob, then an uninfected person comes along and touches the same doorknob, then they can become infected. Insect bites can transmit diseases through a vector, and contaminated food can cause infections. For example, E. coli can be found on ground beef, and if this beef is undercooked, this can cause infections in the gastrointestinal tract. In the body, there are three lines of defence against foreign invaders. The first two are non-specific, and the third line has a specific response. The first line of defence is the physical and chemical barriers which prevent pathogens from entering the body. An example of this is the skin, which is the largest organ of the body and makes up part of the integumentary system. The skin releases chemical secretions which restrict the growth of microbes on the surface. In addition, the top layer of the skin is the epidermis, which consists of keratin. This makes the surface mechanically tough and resistant to the degradation of bacterial enzymes. This also helps the skin stay waterproof, which reduces microbial growth. If the skin becomes broken, this could serve as an entry point for pathogens. Another example is found in the gastrointestinal tract. These include barriers such as stomach acid, pancreatic acid, bile, and intestinal secretions. There are high levels of acidic and alkaline secretions which protect the system. The pH of a stomach acid is too low for most bacteria to survive. The pH level of the small intestines is much higher but is still able to destroy pathogens. The tract is surrounded by smooth muscles that propel the contents by pyrolysis. This helps remove harmful and dead microorganisms. Around 70 to 80% of the body immune cells are found in the gut. Therefore, maintenance of healthy intestinal barriers is essential to general health. The second line of defence consists of responses such as inflammation, fever, phagocytes, and complement proteins and cytokines. An inflammatory response begins when a pathogen stimulates an increase in blood flow to the infected area. Blood vessels in that area expand and dilate, which allows increased blood flow to the area. White blood cells leak from the vessels to invade infected tissue. These white blood cells are called phagocytes. They engulf and destroy bacteria. The area often becomes red and warm due to the large amount of blood reaching the area, swollen because of the amount of blood and proteins that are attracted to the infection, and painful due to the mechanical pressure applied to the nerve cells. The inflammatory response will continue to last until the underlying infection or injury has healed. When a pathogen has invaded, the immune system may release chemicals that increase the body temperature, producing a fever. Increased body temperature can slow or stop pathogens from growing and help speed up the immune response. Macrophages are formed in response to infection. They are specialist cells that recognize, engulf, and destroy target cells. They are formed through white blood cells called monocytes. Macrophages are very versatile and can modify themselves to form different structures, resulting in being able to combat specific infections. Cytokines are a complement protein. They help enhance the immune system by signaling and mediating inflammation. They are crucial in controlling the growth and activity of other immune system cells and blood cells. There are another 30 complement proteins which help remove pathogens. The third line of defense against infections are the lymphocytes that produce antibodies to specific antigenic fragments. Each B cell produces a specific antibody. The body has millions of different B cells capable of detecting distinct antigens. Helper T cells regulate B cell activation, ensuring that antibodies are only mass produced at the appropriate times. Both B and T cells will differentiate to form memory cells after activation, conferring long-term immunity to a particular pathogen. You are not born with acquired immunity, it's something that is learned. This could come from a vaccine, exposure to an infection, or a disease, or another person's antibodies. When your body encounters a foreign substance, the components of acquired immunity learn the best way to attack each antigen and begin to develop a memory for that antigen. Acquired immunity is also called specific immunity because it tailors its attack to a specific antigen previously encountered. Its hallmark is its ability to learn, adapt, and remember. The white blood cells, T and B cells, are responsible for acquired immunity. A key element of the immune system is the white blood cells, also known as leukocytes. These are produced by the bone marrow. White blood cells travel through the blood and tissues of the body on the lookout for any foreign invaders. When they come into contact, they launch an immune attack. There are 5 different types of leukocytes. Neutrophils are the most numerous types of white blood cells, accumulating for around 50% or more of the total. They are medium-sized cells within a regular nuclei. Neutrophils can reach the infection site in a matter of minutes, making them the first to reach the infection. They are also responsible for the production of pus. Their major role is to ingest bacteria or fungi to destroy them. They do this by ingesting the affected organisms in a specialised packets of cell membrane, which fuses with other parts of the neutrophil that contains toxic chemicals that kill microorganisms. Monocytes make up about 5 to 10% of the white blood cells. They are found in the blood vessels of the liver and spleen. They capture the microorganisms as they pass by. When they leave the bloodstream and enter the tissue, they change shape and size, resulting in them becoming macrophages. They are large in size, which means they can digest large particles in wounds. Lymphocytes make up around 20 to 40% of white blood cells. They determine the specifics of immune responses. There are 2 types of lymphocytes, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes make antibodies and T lymphocytes are important in cell-mediated immunity. Eosinophils are rare in the bloodstream and only account for about 0.5 to 1% of white blood cells. When an allergic reaction occurs, this can rise to 3 to 5%. If there is a worm infestation, this can rise much higher. They have large granules which release toxins to kill pathogens. Basophils are the rarest white blood cells. They are produced in the bone marrow but can be found in tissues all over the body. They secrete anticoagulants and antibodies as well as histamines. Immunoglobulins are antibodies. They are glycoprotein molecules produced by the plasma cells. Antibodies are proteins that are bound to antigens, and there are many functions within the body, including targeting infection, recruitment of immune cells, neutralization of toxins, removal of antigens, and complement activation. Typical immunoglobulins are made up of 4 chains structured in a Y format. 2 of the 4 chains have a greater mass. There are 5 types of immunoglobulins. These are IgG, which is the most common type. They are always ready to help prevent infections by multiplying and attacking foreign substances when they enter the body. It is also transferred through the placenta, giving the fetus some protection. IgA plays an important role in cellular defense or soft mucosal surfaces such as the mouth. IgM is found mainly in the blood and lymph fluid, and is the first antibody the body makes when it fights an infection. IgE, normally only small amounts are found in the blood. When there are high amounts, the body will be fighting off a parasitic infection. And IgD, only small amounts found in the body, may function as an antigen receptor or surface B cells. Self-recognition and tolerance to their own tissue is the way of the body of distinguishing between self and non-self. This results in the non-self being attacked. This is due to the unique nature of antigens. The major compatibility complexes I and II are the most important factors which enable the immune system to recognise itself from non-self, along with the human leukocytes antigen gene complex. Human cells usually display specific types of antigens which the immune system recognises as self and deals with according to the antigen. When the immune system comes across an antigen of red blood cells on its surface, it will not attack, nor signal it to be attacked. This is because the immune system recognises it as self. When an antigen isn't recognised by the immune system, it is thought to be non-self by the innate immune system. The adaptive immune system of B and T cells will deal with this. The failure of self-tolerance leads to hypersensitivity. This is an abnormal immune reaction in response to the same antigen. There are 4 categories of hypersensitivity. Antibody-mediated, which is where IgG and IgM-mediated cytotoxic response. Immune complex-mediated is also mediated by the IgM and IgG, which can cause inflammation and tissue damage. Cell-mediated can occur in response to certain allergens, which causes contact dermatitis, and autoimmunity is another example. And this is a system of the immune responses of the body against its own healthy cells, tissues, and other normal constituents. Transplantation is the act of transferring cells, tissues, or organs from one body to another. This is done to replace a damaged organ with a healthy one from a donor. The immune system is a barrier to the transplantation process. This is because the organ is recognised as foreign, because the recipient detects antigens in the cells of the organ which are different from their own. Therefore, the organ is recognised as non-self. There are 3 different types of rejection. Hyperacute rejection. This occurs a few minutes after the transplant has taken place and where the antigens are a complete mismatch. This rejection is seen when a person is given blood of a different type to their own. Acute rejection. This may happen after the first week of the transplant to 3 months after. All recipients have this to varying degrees. Chronic rejection. This takes place over a number of years and the body's immune response slowly damages the transplanted organ or tissue. Autoimmune diseases are where the body mistakenly attacks healthy cells in your body. Many causes of this are unknown. Celiac disease mistakes a substance, gliadin, which is found in gluten, as a threat to the body and attacks it. This damages the surface of the intestines, meaning there's a huge difficulty in the body being able to take nutrients from food. The antibodies produced causes the surface of the intestines to become inflamed. Diarrhea is the most common symptom as the body cannot fully absorb nutrients. Other common symptoms include abdominal pain, bloating, indigestion, constipation, and vomiting. Another example is Hashimoto thyroiditis is caused by the immune system attacking the thyroid hormone. This leads to symptoms such as an underactive thyroid gland, tiredness, weight gain, and dry skin. In Hashimoto's disease, immune system cells lead to the death of the thyroid hormone producing cells. This disease usually results in a decline in the hormone production, hypothyroidism. There are 2 types of active immunity: active natural immunity and active artificially induced immunity. Natural active immunity is acquired from exposure to the disease organism through an infection with the actual disease. When the infectious agent enters the body, an immune response starts to try and attack the pathogen. The T cells in the blood will attach themselves to the pathogen, then it will be presented to the B cells in the bloodstream. The B cells will create the antibody which attacks and destroys the pathogen. The B cell will remember the antibody and which will provide long-term resistance, therefore protecting the body. An example of this is the chickenpox. Artificially induced active immunity is acquired through the induction of a killed or weakened pathogen from a disease through vaccination. The antigens of the vaccine will cause a reaction in the immune system which stimulates the production of antibodies and memory cells. After the vaccination, if a person comes into contact with a pathogen that they have been vaccinated against, naturally the correct antibodies are already present, so bind to the infection agent, therefore destroying it. Natural passive immunity is where the antibodies are transferred from one person to another naturally. An example of this is between mum and unborn child. Certain antibodies are passed from the mother to the unborn child through the fetal bloodstream in the form of IgG. This is important as the child's immune system isn't fully matured until they reach 5 years old, so these antibodies provide some protection 4 to 6 months after birth. Artificially induced passive immunity is where an injection or transfusion of antibodies are given which have been made by someone else. These antibodies work by neutralising the infectious agent, but protection only lasts a few weeks. This is because the antibodies gradually break down and aren't replaced. A vaccination is where you introduce a weakened or harmless version of a pathogen to the immune system. When the body receives the vaccine, white blood cells are stimulated, which produces antibodies. This leads to providing immunity to a certain pathogen. Vaccines can be live or inactive. Live vaccines are wild virus or bacteria which have been weakened in a lab by repeated culturing. The live vaccines have a small dose of the virus or bacteria which replicates in the body, which then stimulates the immune response. An inactivated virus is where the bacteria or virus is produced in a culture media and then inactivated with heat or chemicals, most commonly formalin. Therefore, the vaccines are not alive, so cannot replicate. Because of this, you tend to need more than one dose of the vaccine, and it's usually the second or third dose which provides protective immunity. When a pathogen has come into contact for the second time, the immune system is able to respond quicker and more effectively. This is due to immunological memory. During the first instance of a pathogen encountering the immune system, the antibody needs to be identified by the B lymphocytes to produce plasma cells. This takes time, which means the infection can take hold. Memory cells are produced at this point, which will be able to recognise and destroy the pathogen quicker if encountered again. Vaccinations help protect us from those around us from serious diseases, especially viral diseases which cannot be cured by antibiotics, only vaccinations. In the late 1960s, measles were first vaccinated against. This led to the creation of the MMR vaccination programme in 1968. Public Health England estimates that in the UK, 20 million cases and 4,500 deaths have been avoided due to the vaccines. According to Public Health England, in 1941 there were 40,715 cases and 1,145 deaths. In 2020 there were 698 cases with one adult death. This has been a steady decline. This death was from someone who hadn't had the MMR vaccine. From 2000 to date, there has only been 8 deaths, which could have been averted with the vaccinations. Vaccinations have other benefits, including being able to eradicate diseases such as smallpox in 1979, childhood mortality has decreased due to vaccinations, healthcare savings, reduces antibiotic resistance, extends life expectancy, and economic growth. Some people are unable to be vaccinated, such as newborn babies, the elderly, and those that are too sick. Herd immunity occurs when a large portion of the community becomes immune to a disease, making the spread of the disease from person to person unlikely. As a result, the whole community becomes protected, not just those who are immune. The amount of people who need to be immunised for herd immunity varies with each disease, but always has the same idea to protect the vulnerable members of the community. Herd immunity stops the spread of the disease, but if the immunisation rates fall, then herd immunity can break down, leading to a surge in cases. The microbes of the disease all have different characteristics which affect the rate of infection. Some demographic groups can suffer more than others. For example, whooping cough will make adults ill, but in children it can be fatal. In the UK, the NHS runs vaccination programmes for adults and children. There are vaccination programmes for babies under 1, children aged 1 to 15, adults and people at risk. Often, adults may find it hard to attend clinics, so pharmacies are now able to deliver vaccination clinics, making it easy for people to attend. The same with children. GPs, health visitors, and nurses can administer the vaccination programs to children, making it convenient and accessible, therefore making it more likely people will attend. There are many reasons why the uptake of vaccines has dwindled over the past few years, mainly because of the safety of the vaccination. An example of this is the COVID-19 vaccination. Many people felt like this had been rushed through and therefore we didn't know the side effects that this may have on later life. Another example is that many people started to believe that the MMR vaccine had linked to autism. Although this has been debunked by World Health Organization, many people are still wary of letting their children have it. There is also a group known as the anti-vaxxers who believe vaccines do more harm than good. They spread the information all over social media, which can have disastrous results. Many of these can be spoken about with a health professional who can put your mind at ease. Thank you for watching.